Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show, Gary's here, and we've got lots to talk about. Got some new smart home devices which we can be talking about. These cheap sort of presence sensors and temperature sensors could be interesting. We've got new updates for Windows, new builds, Canary, Dev, and Beta, and we'll be talking a bit about 23H2. We've got some smart home updates, EV news, and lots more. So let's get straight to Gary. Gary, good evening.
Good evening.
in your virtual avatar, I do like that. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I tried to get it matched to me, and you soon be. I'm sure that at some point soon they're gonna have an avatar co-pilot to allow you to create your avatars from images of yourself. And
yes, that's when we get to the uncanny valley type thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's coming at some point. And it's handy for people that don't have cameras or can't put the cameras on or for whatever reason. So I think it looks quite good. I've gone for the bit of blue line across the
video
line
effects.
across the bottom. Yes, the video effects on there.
Can you combine video effects with avatars? No, you can't. You can't. It has to be done.
One or the other. Yeah. I mean, I know Richard's not here this week, and he likes to have his little his fun about Teams. But when you think to how easy this is to work to record, I probably jinxed it now and it won't record or something. But yeah, when you think how I used to have to set up separate audio channels and mess about with different, and then the default mixer and all that kind of stuff. It used to take me ages sometimes. It just wouldn't work. So it is good to see that this does make the operation simpler. Oh, and you've changed backgrounds as well.
I have, yes. Okay. Yeah. I think it's a bit more colourful.
Yes. Yeah. So it is nice to see this process does work for us anyway. I mean, not everybody uses Teams in this way, but it works for our recordings. So we've got a few things to talk about this week. We've got quite a few builds. I've got 23H2 as well. I've got some a new video on a Korg Modwave to talk about. I have got some new smart home stuff, but I haven't had a chance to try it. And this is the Lincoln Link. I don't know if you've heard of this one.
Yes, I've been hearing about Lincoln Link.
Yeah. So I've got a few of these devices. So let me share this is their website. Let me share that screen. Okay, yeah. So this is the Lincoln Link. I think that's how they would pronounce it. Which it's one of those. It's one of the Chinese, isn't it? Manufacturers, smart home equipment. So I've got three here. It's the eHub, the ETHS, which is the smart home bridge, and eMotion. So I'm going to see what I can do with those, but I know that they work with the usual Google, Alexa kind of things. So I'm going to have a look what we can do with those. Well, looking at the thing they have human radar sensors, which is a bit like, which is what you were talking about, isn't it? The other week?
It's kind of microwave. It's a lot cheaper than the thing. I don't think it's as sophisticated as the one I've been talking about, but it's still very impressive.
So it's the little, you can see it on the screen, and my camera is showing it as well. So it's a little white device like that with a sticky pad. So that's the eMotion, which is what's the purpose of that is to tell when someone's in a room, is it?
Yeah, so it's using the microwave again, like the car I've been talking about, to actually sense micro movements. So the idea is that it detects things like heartbeats, which means someone really is in the room, and it's not going to stop sensing you if you don't move. So it's more of a presence than movement sensing.
And then I've got the smart home bridge, which I guess is what the part that links with the other bits of the ecosystem. Then.
Yeah.
So these all come with a sticky pad and a USB-C cable, but I think this has got a sensor on it as well, hasn't it? By the looks of it, I can see a sensor.
It's got a temperature sensor and a humidity sensor built into the lead. Yeah,
so that will be quite nice in my office. And then I've got this one is a eHub, which I think is props to bring everything together.
Yeah, and I think they've also got an infrared E-box, I think, is one of the other things.
Yes, yeah, I haven't got that one. Yeah, they've got that. Yeah.
And I think the e-box actually has everything built into it. I think even that has presence sensing as well, if I remember rightly. But I may be wrong. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, these are remarkably cheap for what they are, though. I mean, if you consider that, and these are sort of like in the 20 quid mark, aren't they? Than most of this. So.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to play about with these. So interesting. Like, what's the difference between a smart home bridge and a hub? Because they sound like they should be doing the similar things.
The thing, find out what the things are. But yeah, I mean, it's something really, really interesting, and the radar sensor idea is really good. I think it's they're far better than that. They've got their own controls. You've got they work with Alexa very well, apparently. So yeah, it's don't work with smart things according to that, but I'll have a look into it, see what else they can do.
So there you go. So the smart home bridge, the hub, the ETHS, that's the temperature humidity sensor.
Yeah.
And then I've got the radar sensor as well. So I should be able to trigger various things. So it's all kind of my lights going off. That wasn't me.
So it's interesting that eHub has got IR control, RF and IR control, and the human radar and the humidity and temperature. That's quite a powerful little beast then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm going to enjoy having a play around with those when I get a bit of time, and see what we can do with those. Because these things are always fun when you can integrate them with the other systems and everything else. So I'll try and have a look at that. Now I'm sure I mentioned something about last week on that was something you should try, and I can't remember what that was now. I know I've got the new lights on there, but we'll have to see what else I've
some
got.
twinkly stuff.
Yes, the if you're looking at your Christmas lights, your festive displays, I noticed that people looking at the review that I did last year of the lights as well. So the outdoor twinkly ones are rather nice as well. So you can check out my video on that. Right, well, what else we got to discuss this week? Oh, yes. First, I wanted to, we mentioned the Windows Insider program. I got some nice gifts off there. I wanted to thank them, the Windows Insider team last week, because a hat and a drinking bottle and a jigsaw and a T-shirt as well, which was very nice. So very nice to receive those. It's definitely going to miss that. Definitely going to miss that program. So we'll see what happens in the future, but it's definitely going to be missed.
Yeah, indeed.
Right, builds. We've had some new builds of Windows last week. So first, I just wanted to touch on 23H2. So we had 23H2 released last week, and it seems to have caused. I think we did cover it last week, but it has caused a bit of confusion with people not quite understanding what 23H2 is. So I have got obviously a video about it, but actually it fundamentally boils down to two things that you would see from user. That you get the Microsoft Teams free version that you can unpin now, rather than it being a kind of system component. And the system components has moved around to its own settings page. So really, that's the only difference. If you've already got the September update, which add all the new things in, like the new File Explorer and everything else. So I think there's a lot of things under the hood, but as far as the users see, there's not a huge amount. But I think it just puts it like a service pack, doesn't it? So that's a supported version for updates going forward. I don't know if there's any developer stuff in there. I don't think there really is at the moment, is there?
I couldn't see anything under the skin.
Yeah.
But sometimes you find out about these things later on. They sort of they'll announce something and they say, "Oh, and this was supported from 23H2 onwards," sort of thing. So but at the moment, I can't see anything. Yeah,
and sometimes they deprecate features as well, don't they? So and they do it from a certain build, but they haven't seen that. So that's what 23H2 is. I've not been offered it yet, although you can get it if you if you go and do the settings in Windows to get the latest version or whatever it is in settings, you could get it, but it's not been offered yet, and that's because Microsoft aren't rolling it out to everybody. They're doing it to selected devices. The usual phased approach. But you got your hands on your head there.
Yeah, I'm doing Richard's gestures for him.
I've heard that it could be to do with drivers or something like that, but I don't know why it wouldn't be offered to say the Surface Laptop Studio, a 12-month-old device, but they go through that validation program, don't they? That they said they use machine learning to make sure that all the right devices get it, but you're not missing anything if you've not got it anyway. So you want the nice features, but that's already come down fairly recently. So it's a good update to have, but not something that you really need. So let's hope that the next big update to Windows brings us a lot more interesting things, because now they've stripped the features out from the 23 or for the half yearly updates. They're not quite as exciting.
Yeah, it's hard to get excited over some of these releases these days anyway. As Richard was saying the other week, it's not like you used to build everything up into one bulk and then release it. But in a lot of ways, as you rightly said, that's a much better approach from a business point of view, from managing deployments and things like that. Just so slowly. That's what we like.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's just it's just a shame. We liked all that fun stuff in the past, but we did get some interesting stuff. I noticed I think it's the Canary builds that are getting a bit more features in them in the last few builds. So last week we did get a couple of builds. We got 25987 and 23580. 23580 for the dev channel had very little in there that was exciting. I think there was just one change. Copilot now works with a limited number of queries when you use a local account rather than a Microsoft account, and nearby share has been updated. So devices on the public or private networks can now share. That's quite. That makes sense that they've done that, because if you're using nearby sharing, maybe you're working with someone that's not in your work group, your work group, going back a bit there, not in your domain or whatever, or you're not in your private network, you're in a guest network, then I suppose that makes sense. But not the most exciting features. The Canary one was a bit more interesting. Again, this one, I've seen a lot of headlines coming from this, and obviously slightly misleading. The headlines I was seeing was Microsoft removes Windows maps and movies and TVs from Windows going forward.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, that's not quite what that implies that those apps have been killed and that movies and TVs gone, but that's not the case. What it is, if you set up a brand new machine on the Canary channel, so you get an ISO, do a clean install, the maps and movie and TV apps aren't installed. You can just go to the store and pick them from there. So if you're doing a restore from backup, and you had them on your previous build, then they'll just be automatically downloaded. And if you didn't, then you can just go and get them. So the only difference is that they're just not included in the box, which I guess is about making the ISO version slightly cleaner and leaner, and you're forced to go online more or less anyway now, aren't you? So it's not like you can set up a machine in total isolation anymore. So if you do, and if you plan to build an air-gapped machine or something like that, you won't be able to use maps on it or movies and TVs. But it's very unlikely that you're going to use it in that scenario. So so I don't think it makes a huge deal. So they're not removing it. And if you get a build on the Canary channel, they don't get uninstalled if you've already got them. They're just there, and they carry on working. So don't panic. The other things were they add support for PNG file properties. So exciting. So you can put the star rating on a picture, and it'll remember those properties, whereas if you're on the older builds, it doesn't. So that's under the hood, and the rest were just fixes and stuff like that. So yeah, not a huge amount to go on there, but we did get, so at least we got some new builds. I think we also got a Canary a beta build last week. What was that? 22635, and just the one thing on that. So fixed for drop shadow. So not a huge amount in the builds last week, but you can see more things being sneaked into the Canary, which for a while the Canary was getting nothing, and now it's started to get some new features. So maybe they are minor ones, but they're kind of important ones. So that's good to see. So may it continue, but hopefully we'll start to see some more exciting stuff. Windows 12, something like that. Who knows? You never know. We might start to see that, but there's no talk about that at the moment. But it does seem like they would they would market an OS with co-pilots and AI and everything else. Because I think there's a Microsoft event in the next couple of weeks. Is it Ignite?
Yeah, Ignite's coming up. It's usually fairly full of announcements, so we shall see.
Yeah, I think there's seen rumours about the next version of Office, but even that has succumbed to the monthly update type thing, hasn't it? So it used to be, went from Office 95 to Office 97 to Office 2000. It was a big deal, but now everyone's on these Office 365, and it's just a continual update, isn't it? And you just get these new features. Yeah. Apart from the only one, I think the only big change I've seen with that is Outlook, and I've kind of convinced myself, I've forced myself to use the new Outlook, and I've got used to it now, so I don't need to go back to the old one. But it is quite a change, isn't it, from the old Outlook? But if you work in a corporate environment, the new Outlook is way leaner, and but it takes a bit of getting used to. If you're on a personal machine, if you use the new mail app, if you use the mail app and then choose the new one, use the preview one, that is the same one is the corporate one, I think. So essentially it's the same web-based front end, isn't it? It's a, I don't know, is it a wrapper, or is that what you describe it, or is it just using the web technologies? But it looks like a web version to me.
It's probably a hybrid, but
yeah,
I don't actually know. I'll have to dig into that and have a look and see what they've actually done.
Yeah, I actually like it. Some people I know, so I can't use it, but if you've ever dealt with corrupt OST files, you'll be quite glad to see the back of the old Outlook, and the new one is way leaner and not keeping 100 gigabyte OST files on your local drive. So and for personal use, I found it pretty good. I've got it on the Surface Go. It's better than the old Mail app, and I use it for my Gmail and everything else. So I quite like it. So that was all the Windows 11 or Microsoft updates this week. I don't know if you've got any other Microsoft news.
No, it really jumps out. I mean, I did actually make use of some Microsoft AI technology to write some listings for eBay. I could have used eBay's own AI technology. It was interesting. So when you create a listing now, you actually get the option to have eBay's AI actually create your listing for you.
That's interesting.
It's like a professional copywriter has actually written your listing. It is quite impressive. But the only problem is that everybody's using it, so everybody's listings are very similar in terms of content.
Right.
So I wanted to come up with something different. So I used Windows Copilot to actually get it to write a bit of blurb, and it came out slightly different, so it stood out a little bit. And the items did sell, so that was quite good. But yeah. Definitely wrote better than I would have done. Got more flowery and more.
Yeah, I've used it sometimes now for YouTube descriptions. So I give it effectively the description I would write for the blog post. Tell it that I want a YouTube channel, YouTube description, and it does change the wording slightly to be more YouTube style than a blog. So the blog posts, I always think tend to be more direct. The YouTube ones are a little bit more flowery to try and entice you to watch the video, and algorithms and everything else. So it's actually quite good at doing that. And then what I've started doing as well is asking asking it to suggest what the thumbnail should be, and then I use the design.microsoft.com tool, which I actually really like, and I actually create the image in there using some of the AI stuff and just some of it, using my own pictures and put my own text in there. So, so the whole process is using that Microsoft's the Bing Chat or do it through Copilot in Windows. So I'm using that for that, to help for the videos to stand out in a way that would be better suited to YouTube as opposed to a blog post. So it's quite good for that. It would be great if I could build some automation around it, so I could do the blog post and say, right now, write me the YouTube video, put it, paste it up. But it's not quite at that stage. But like you said, it is helpful especially for the text, because there's a YouTube description tends to have a different tone to a blog post, which might have a different tone to something you do somewhere else, and you can kind of adjust the tone, can't you? You supply the content and it adjusts the tone for you.
Yeah, it's quite impressive actually in that respect.
Yeah,
I think that's the one really good use of. I mean, it does. I think if there's any career which is at risk, it is probably copywriters, because that large language models are actually very good at writing text.
Yeah. So I find it quite useful for that, and of course it picks out any of the typos in there as well. So it's quite handy to have a second pair of eyes on the stuff that you're writing as well, which are quite fun, which I find pretty good. So yeah, I'm seeing them. I think Squarespace and I think in WordPress.com anyway have certainly got these tools as well. I think you can probably get third-party WordPress tools as well that would do the proofreading in the WordPress environment as well. So there's a variety of different ways doing it. I've used the ChatGPT as well to do it, and Bing Chat. They're very similar in their outputs, do similar things. So sometimes things go a bit weird in Bing Chat, I found, but that's less frequent now than it was. It would used to say I can't. You'd ask it to proofread something, and it would say I can't do that. Yes, you can. You did it like this morning, but the funny thing, you can argue with it, which is quite good, isn't it? You can say yes, you can do it, and then eventually it throws you out the chat if you really start arguing with it. But I see what you mean. It is. I mean, I think back to the process of when we were doing our Windows books, I would sort of plate a load of stuff together, send it over to you, and you made sense out of it. So, I wonder
how much of that by AI now. That's it.
Yeah. How much of that raw ideas could be then filtered and cleaned up? I guess at the moment it still looks better when a human reads, because you can understand, like, you got used to the way I would throw it across to you, so you got used to that intent, whereas an AI engine doesn't quite have that. But I suppose it's possible to the machine learning for it to get used to the way that someone writes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting how it's going to affect different industries, and how that will filter into the tool. I've got a feeling it's just going to, all the software vendors are going to be including it. So you're going to see it in Windows everywhere, in Office, in every package that you can get. And I wonder how much impact that's had on search traffic, as we talked about a few months ago when Bing Chat and ChatGPT first came out, whether it actually has any input on search, because it's quite sort of fronting. If you go on to Bing, it's almost like the default now, isn't it, of a search? So I wonder how much impact that's had on the search engines, and whether Google's seen a dip because people are using that, or people using it initially and it's sort of leveled out now.
Indeed.
So one of the videos that I did use that on, the chat stuff, was for one of my last couple of videos actually I did. So these are two examples. So these images were done with the Microsoft Designer. The AI I used, Bing Chat recommended kind of what you should do, and then I use that designer and then put my own images in them. But it's kind of, it gives you some good ideas. But these headlines were generated by Bing Chat. So I wrote the text out, put it into Bing Chat, and I said suggest the title, and it gave me sort of 6 different options on those, the ones I picked. So using it for that kind of thing, I think is quite interesting, which is something that news editors and things like that would do, isn't it? So it is a kind of a job that it's doing there. But anyway, if anybody has got a Korg Modwave, the latest video on here is how to transfer samples in and out, how to transfer wavetables in and out. I've done a few patches now, so I wanted to make a video to show you how to import them and how to export them if you want to do your own as well. So I've been playing around with that. I'm currently working on bringing some samples into the Modwave, so I'm trying to find old synthesizers that are like the Sonic ESQ1 piano sound and a few classic sort of sounds, and bringing them into the synth and see what I can do with them. So yeah, that's my next thing. In fact, I was watching some YouTube videos, and it came up with the Roland D50. You remember the Roland D50, the one with the N you used a lot, and Sail Away and all that, and some of those presets, I thought, oh, I should get one of those. So I was like, oh, shall I go and have a look on eBay? But no, I don't need any more keyboards. And those are quite vintage now. I mean, I think they were 89, something like that, 88, 89. So those Roland ones. So yeah, going back to what we talked about a few weeks ago, you've got to look after this vintage kit as well. So no, I can't fit anything else in there. There's no room on the shelves. There's no room anywhere else now. So I'll do it with samples.
Virtual the approach. Yeah, going virtual is your approach, isn't it? So
yeah,
I have to say I've been really enjoying your music of late. There's some really nice stuff you've been producing. It's very emotive and yeah, brings back my youth.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe by next week I should have my 10 tracks mastered and everything ready for my next album, which I'll be posting on all the usual streaming services. But we talked about the Spotify last week. It's 1,000 plays, I think, that Spotify are going to. If you don't get over 1,000 plays of a song, you won't earn anything from it, which is quite a high bar. It's not for the big guys, but for someone who's, I think I've got 28 monthly streams, monthly listeners, so it's going to take me a while to get to 1,000. And where I'm not earning anything, I think it's maybe in 12 months I've earned like £5 or something like that. But that's still that money that Spotify is going to keep, isn't it? So
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of backlash from that, but of course the big guys it doesn't affect them, and that's what people go to. So unless some of the big artists make a stand, I can't see that really much changing. If I say, right, that's it, I'm not putting my music on Spotify, no one cares. But if one of the big artists says they're not going to put it on Spotify, then that will make an impression. So but of course the big artists, 1,000 plays doesn't matter. So it's a bit of an underhand tactic, I think, that. But considering what's happening with Bandcamp, they're having issues as well, and they were bought by Epic Games, weren't they? So it seems the streaming services aren't really designed for small musicians, and I think it gives you that availability to at least upload them, which is what I do. But certainly, I think it must be hard for young bands coming through trying to get any revenue out of streaming services. But that's certainly been a thing that's been an ongoing issue, isn't it? For that's not a new thing, but it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, it's when accountants run things. Something did well last year, so it'll do well next year, so it'll do. But then you never get anything new come along. It's very difficult to establish yourself these days.
Yeah. Anything going on in the EV world that you wanted to talk about this week?
Lots of installs going on. There's a planning permission for a very, very large site, and I've forgotten exactly how large, but Moto were putting a planning application in for a massive EV charging hub. With also chargers for HTVs.
All right, yeah.
So they I forget exactly where it was.
Is that the new one on the M4?
So this
new one on the M4.
Yeah, that's one of them. But this was trying to find it because it was it was actually sort of amazing number of chargers. So here it is. It is the one on the M4. Yeah, you're right. And they were talking about 50 plus EV chargers.
Wow.
And I forget how many. And yeah, a sufficient number of HDV chargers as well. It looked incredible that sort of numbers they were talking about. But also I think there's been a lot of upgrades going on around the country recently. I mean, I noticed locally we've got a Starbucks which has had 2 Instavolts for ages, and suddenly I noticed the other day that they ripped out part of the car park and putting in 4 more Instavolt chargers. So I have 6 in this little Starbucks tucked around the back of nowhere. It's sort of, you must have the traffic to justify that. You must be getting the numbers of people through to do charging. The other thing which I've been really impressed with, although it did let me down the other day, but there's a new charging company which sort of came out of nowhere called Monta. And I don't know who actually owns them, but they're tending to specialise in destination charging. So there's sort of the chargers, and so our local park installed had a new car park put in recently, and they put in loads of these Monta chargers. So I think it's over 20 of them in there. I mean, they're low powered ones, but you plug in and you charge.
Yeah.
While you're playing it, while your kids are playing at the park or whatever, you spend a couple of hours there, and you've got enough charge to cover the journey. Basically, you've gone there, you come back, and it's actually at a reasonable price. And it's not contactless because these things aren't particularly straightforward to have contactless charge things on them. And they would fall below the regulations for having contactless anyway. But there is things like, it's got some nice touches, like everything single one's got a QR code on, so you can just scan the QR code. It will take you to the website, and you can make a payment. And it's fairly obvious you can do that. But they've also got RFID tags on them, so NFC tags on them. So if you've got the right sort of phone, you can just tap those, and they'll transfer you the website and for payment as well. Yeah. So quite nicely done. And I'm a great fan of destination chargers. I think we need more destination chargers. With the longer range vehicles coming out, I mean, certainly if we do find these funding to get to solid state and we're getting these 900-mile range cars, then what you're really going to want is destination charging. You won't need the on-the-road chargers and the motorway charging. And as I've often mentioned, the services on the motorways are one of the most difficult places to get chargers in, unless you're creating a new services like the one on the M4, and where they can actually put solar. They're going to put solar park alongside that to actually power battery storage and all sorts of things to cover that. So yeah, it's interesting. But obviously, as we mentioned, the new regulations coming in last week. One of the interesting things on there is that everybody has got to supply their data from their chargers to a central sort of area where you can get a central API with, so all cars will be able to see all chargers, and hopefully that will lead to better route planning. So you'll actually see what. Because I mean, my car can see about 90% of the networks, but you can't always see what's being used on all the other ones. So it'd be nice to have that. But it's interesting. I mean, the other thing which I saw recently as well was that a couple of companies are now starting to put 22 kilowatt DC chargers in, which is something I've always said was a good idea. So this is so basically CCS stroke channel mode chargers. So whereas normally 22 kilowatt chargers are 3-phase AC, not many cars can actually use 3-phase AC. Most cars are limited to 7 kilowatt single phase. So it's very rarely you actually find a car which can actually make use of this 22 kilowatt AC. But 22 kilowatt DC, virtually all cars can make use of that. All EVs can make use of that.
Right.
And it makes sense for when you're staying somewhere for a few hours, for a couple of hours. If you're going shopping or go to supermarket, you might spend an hour and a half in these sort of places, which is too long for a conventional charger, because you'd be charged well before you finish that with modern cars. But a 22 kilowatt charger is not going to charge you in an hour. It might take 2 hours, 3 hours to charge. So it's almost the perfect charger for that. It would charge your car fully, but not So and that technology's been around for a while, but it's the first time I've really seen it starting to be implemented properly. And I quite like that as well. I think that's a different type of destination charging. We've got to think about all these things. I mean, in some ways, you see concentration. You see really rapid charges being put in odd places where you think maybe it would be better to have a lot more destination charges or a lot more lower powered charges. But yeah, it's good to see some development going on anyway.
And I suppose two what you would say destination charges, or you could have say 10 destination charges or one rapid charger, but so it makes more sense.
Yeah, basically. I mean, if you think about what a destination charge usually is, it's usually around about 7 kilowatts. And that's the sort of normal rate for a destination charger. And a standard sort of high powered charger now, sort of base level for them are about 150 kilowatts. So you're talking sort of like a 20 to 20 volt. You could have 20. Almost, it's not quite as simple maths, but 20 destination charges for every one ultra charger. So yeah, it does make you into. It's interesting at times how this could work. I mean, I think particularly DC chargers, it makes sense to, if you have, because you can balance. So things like the Power system, which allows you to balance the charge going out to different endpoints. So you can have one car charging at a high rate than another. You could actually balance sort of 40 or 50 cars all on a DC chargers network, and only supply them, say, 5 or 6 kilowatts on a DC basis. But if there were less cars on there, you get a faster charge. That sort of thing is feasible where you've got limited power. Although it's nice to actually be predictable how long your charge was going to take. Actually, it's one of the things I was mentioning, this monitor system. I quite like one of the things they actually tell you is as soon as you plug in, it tells you when your charge is going to finish. So it tells you what time your car will be fully charged, which I think is quite a nice thing it works out, and it does seem to be pretty accurate, at least on my car.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it makes sense for these chargers to be adapted to the best scenarios, rather than just banging in the,
Yeah, I mean, I remember I talked to Ian from Osprey about this some time ago, and we were talking about dwell times and how dwell times are different depending where you are. If you're going to local shop, your dwell time is probably 10-15 minutes. If you go to a pub, your dwell time might be a couple of hours. And it's different courses and so on. But if you go shopping, a day's shopping in a town, you might spend 5 or 6 hours at a place. So, and that's a completely different metric again. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see how this all works out.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, and I think the more of these charges, the better. For the infrastructure gets, the more appealing that the EVs get. So there's more EVs, so there's more demand.
Yeah,
it's a good
cycle. Interesting. I mean, we often talk about Norway as being a sort of shining beacon of EV adaptation, and that is definitely the case. I mean, they've got to the point now where they're taking some of the EV incentives away in Norway, because basically it's just what people buy. They buy EVs. But there's actually more EVs on the road in the UK than there are in Norway. It's just obviously per population, and it's a definite difference in that respect. But the market will change over time. But it's actually really difficult to justify all this investment in chargers, because when we start getting solid state batteries, which I know have been around coming for ages, or some of the other battery structures, and we start seeing these, say, 800, 900 mile ranges easily, or we see the 100-mile range car which can be charged in a couple of minutes. You don't need as many chargers. You really don't need as many chargers as we're talking about now. But we do need that many chargers now. That's the difficulty.
Yeah. So it's just get the balance right, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is kind of why you need government incentives to do this stuff, but not as particularly incentives around getting electricity to the places where we need electricity to supply these chargers.
Yeah.
As you talked about way leaves, the dreaded
way leaves, yeah. Yeah, and that kind of stuff is so complicated and difficult to get. So it's not easy, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Was there any other stories you wanted to fit into this week's show?
Well, I think we should mention that we've obviously got Black Friday coming up. There'll be a few
yes,
bargains to go. I noticed that the Amazon Echo Pop, the new. I'm tell you quite how I describe the Pop. It's like the old Echo Dot, but on its side almost. It's quite a nice speaker, but they're doing a pair of those at a very reasonable price at the moment. So if you haven't got Echo devices, who hasn't got Echo devices? I can't imagine anybody hasn't got them at the moment.
Yeah.
But they're there. It's interesting the way that's going. I've actually. Oh, that's the other thing actually. So we, for quite a long time in the States, you've been able to extend your Eero mesh network using the last generation of the Echo Show and the Echo. I think it's just the standard. It's not the Echo Show. The standard Echo. Amazon Echo devices as a Wi-Fi extender, basically on the Eero network. They call it Eero built in, and they've actually turned that on in the UK with a recent update. So I've actually now got a couple of my Echo devices have suddenly become Wi-Fi extenders, which has boosted the connectivity.
Oh right, yeah. So what do you need to have as your base Wi-Fi?
So you need one of the Eero devices. You need an Eero mesh.
Yeah.
But it means you could potentially, if you've got a lot of the fourth and fifth generation Amazon devices, you potentially could just buy one Eero device and then use them as extenders. I mean, they're not going to be as good as an Eero, a proper Eero extender, but they do seem to work pretty well.
Yeah, that's it makes a difference then if especially just using the device, just added functionality, so you can just use what you've already got. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Have you got that? And so what I've done, I've just repurposed. So I had I've had a kind of hybrid network where I've used Eeros for part of the network and TP-Link Decos for another part of the network, just because of the way they go through walls. But I've actually found that by using an Echo, I can replace the TP-Link devices for my garage. So one of my key areas is extending out to the garage because I have the charger out of the garage, which I need to have connectivity to. And I've actually now been able to use the Echo device to do that, which is quite nice. It's quite an interesting approach.
Yeah, that's quite good. Yeah, so I think I know my son was looking for a Surface Pro 9, and they did have some in a brief sale Amazon about a month ago, and I think he missed it. So I think he's hoping for him to have some more of those, because I think it was like £400 off one of the models. So that's something I know he's going to be keeping an eye out, because you can sometimes pick up some nice bargains with that. So I'll keep an eye out and see what else I can find. No synthesizers though.
No synthesizers, no. You can't buy any of those.
Yeah. Right, well, I think that's just about everything for this week's show. I think Richard's back with us next week, so hopefully I'll have some time to play with these link devices.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how I get with those.
Yeah, I've got a couple of... I've got a trip away myself to Dortmund next week, so I'm not sure how much time I get to play with them, but I might even take one with me and fiddle around the hotel and give me something to do in the evenings. But where can we find you?
You can find me at Garry WMA on all the social networks.
Yes, that's the best place. You find me at iFixon, and all the links are on thedislife.com, including the videos and the music we talked about. So actually, we'll play out with one of the news channels as well, Midnight Reflections. So we'll be back same time, same place next week, and make sure you check out my Spotify channel. See you next week.
Take care.